I'll turn it on for you.
For the clerk's office. Nice to meet you.
Do you know my clerk? Shelley Shabbat?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, Shelley and my
The law and the nuances and yeah. Yes. But we got to keep everyone in line. Nice to meet you.
All right, thank you. Excuse me, can I have your attention, please? We're going to try to get this meeting going. So if you're a commissioner and you have not signed in, please sign in at the clerk's, and we'll get this going.
We're handing it off to Jennifer. And with that, we're handing it off to Jennifer.
Thank you, commissioners and member of the public here tonight. Again, as I stated, if you're a current or incoming commissioner, if you could please sign in at the clerk's office in lieu of a lengthy roll call, and we'll get this meeting started. And I'll kick it over to the mayor for opening remarks.
I'm not going to do it from up there. I'm going to do it from here so you can all kind of see me better. Welcome. This is a first. This is absolutely the first time we've had an all-commissioner training like this. So I'm really happy that we're doing it. I've been on commissions twice. First time 23 years ago, I had full training. We did a mock planning commission meeting in here, and I thought it was great. I had a book they gave me to read. We had homework to do. Second time, thrown to the wolves. And when I asked the other new commissioners, they did not get the training. So that's one thing I wanted to change. We want to have everybody knowledgeable on Brown Act, on the bylaws, on where you're going as a commission, and the general plan too, for that matter. So that's the reason. This is a start tonight, and I look to go further. So out of curiosity, how many people are currently on a commission by show of hands? Okay. Now, of those, how many got no training when they came on commission? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so that's why we're here tonight. I thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. We are taping this tonight so that any new commissioner can see it. Any commissioner that couldn't make it tonight can view it. And we want to make this part of the mandatory training. So thank you for coming, and I'll turn it over to the city manager.
And I think I will turn it over to City Clerk as next up. And thank you, Mayor, for your opening remarks. We'll turn it over to City Clerk for public comment.
Thank you. And just a reminder for public comment, your comment is limited to what is on the agenda tonight. I will call you up 3 at a time, and there are 9 speakers tonight. First 3 speakers, Teresa Beauchamp, followed by Dante Fall, and then Ana Maria Alvarez.
Champ. I live in Encinitas District.
Can we rotate this?
That's a great idea, Bruce. Thanks.
How about, I'm going to aim you kind of towards that.
That's perfect.
That work out? Is that going to mess up, we video or audio?
My name is Teresa Beauchamp. I have lived in Encinitas District 2 for 38 years and have been a member of our city's West African dance and drum community for 15 years. While tonight celebrates civic service, and I'm really happy to see this event happen, thank you, Mayor, I urge this council to immediately rescind Steve Hobeck's appointment to a city committee. Public service requires a commitment to the dignity of all residents. At the February 18th meeting, I, along with two other Encinitas residents, shared evidence that this appointee used social media to target our Black and West African dance communities with harmful racial rhetoric. When given the chance to reflect, Mr. Hobeck gave a tone-deaf response void of understanding or empathy. His post remains further alienating and hurting our neighbors. That's the post. This is not a difference of opinion. It is a violation of public trust. I have filed a formal complaint. The city website referred me to the California Civil Rights Stop Hate Department, and a state case manager has contacted me and requested and received evidence regarding the harm done. Tonight, new members will be briefed on the city's code of ethics, which prohibits discriminatory behavior. If those words have meaning, you cannot seat a member who has already demonstrated a refusal to adhere to them. A warm welcome for this individual is a cold shoulder to our Black neighbors and our West African dance drum community. While Mr. Hobeck has a right to free speech, he does not have a right to a government appointment. Please uphold our values and remove this appointee, and thank you for this opportunity for us to speak.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council members. My name is Dante Anabi Mustafa Edward Fayal, a devoted father of, again, African descent, nurturing my young family right here in Encinitas. Tonight, I'm here with my soul weighed down. I expand on last week's testimony as a professor of West African dance at a La Jolla Research Institution, founder of, again, a Southern California Cultural Arts and Wellness Collective, and host to master artists from West Africa who invigorate our city with love, knowledge, peace, and protection. As I stand before you, the hurt and frustration festers raw and deep. My family and community still suffers from Stephen Hobeck's racist Facebook posts, a brutal lash of ignorance labeling us Blacks like haunting relics and mocking sacred West African drums as crude, as in they're banging, in tribal gear. This is Ankara. In 2026, I question if this incident shadows those of the civil rights era or dawns a new day for us to march in Dr. King's dream of unity. Historically, our Malinke ancestors from the Mali Empire fostered bonds of love, peace, and harmony with the Kumeyaay guardians of this land this building sits on. They created reverent havens amid colonialism, yet and still, poisonous words fueled by hate continue to push Black Americans away with the chains of slavery, eroding self-worth and civil gains. It alienates the West African diaspora like mine and endorses erasure for indigenous and minority kin, Native, Latino, and again, it rips society's fabric. This venom shames Encinitas, etching bias into our children's eyes, amplifying microaggressions like stares that plague my family, eroding trust in gatherings, and stifling future empathy. Encinitas, if valuing residents' lives, matters, I again urge you to awaken resolve. Fund protected spaces for cultural exchange, parks, schools with master classes, free youth programs, especially anti-bias trainings. Remove figures from roles to show that you guys are truly about justice. Thank you again for this opportunity to transform our community.
Anna Maria Alvarez, followed by Diane Panella, Rachel LaShaw, and then Amanisha Cunningham.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Ana Maria Alvarez. I am a tenured professor and head of the dance department at the University of California in San Diego. In that role, I've had the privilege of hiring Dante Fayal, who you just heard speak, to join our growing dance program. It's this job that encouraged him to move to Encinitas with his beautiful family. And so I feel particularly horrified by the actions of Steve Hubick and the other aggressions that Mr. Fayal has experienced since moving to Encinitas. At UC San Diego, he teaches packed classes of undergraduate students, guiding them through grounding, authentic, and transformative curriculum rooted in West African dance, drumming, and step traditions. I've witnessed firsthand the power of this work. Dance is more than just movement, it's a language. It teaches us to see ourselves and one another. It builds community across difference. It creates spaces where people feel safe and welcomed. Encinitas' West African dance and drum community embodies these values of dignity, cultural respect, and shared humanity. And it's in that spirit that I urge this council to immediately rescind the appointment of Steve Hubick. Public service is not simply a position, it's a responsibility. It requires a demonstrated commitment to the dignity and inclusion of all residents. When an appointee's words or actions alienate members of the very community he's tasked to represent, it's not a matter of disagreement, it's a breach of public trust. So tonight, new committee members I know will be educated on proper governance, including the city's code of ethics, which prohibits discrimination based on race. And if those words are to have meaning, they must be upheld consistently and without exception. You cannot, in good faith, seat a member who has already shown a refusal to adhere to these principles. Offering a quote-unquote warm welcome to this individual sends a chilling message to our Black and brown neighbors and to the West African dance and drum community. While Mr. Hubick has every right to freedom of speech, he does not have the right to a government appointment. So I respectfully ask you to uphold the values that you are sworn to protect, to choose integrity, to choose inclusion, and to rescind his appointment immediately. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Ellers, City Manager Campbell, City Attorney Tind. I hope I said that correctly. My name is Diane Panella, and I am a founder and organizer for Encinitas West African Dance Classes. I have resided in Encinitas for 14 years. I currently reside in San Elijo Hills. We're a group of dance and drum enthusiasts that span age, faith, ethnicities, and cultures. We have been a dance class in Encinitas for 15 years. We still are. However, the West African dance and drum classes in Encinitas have been here long before our particular class. Actually, Encinitas has a long history of West African dance and drum, even prior to our class. Our classes are taught by a co-op of teachers that reside locally, regionally, nationally, and globally. And the reason that students come to our classes is to honor ancestors, enrich their culture, learn someone else's culture, physical health, and mental health. We're a safe space to explore all of the above. I was nauseated to read the racist, careless, disrespectful post from Stephen Hubick. With the drum being a central component to African and African American culture, this felt like a direct attack on that culture. I personally know the drummer in the video clip that is in question. I know that he's a professional who has graced stages nationally and internationally and has spent a lifetime perfecting hundreds of intricate and specific rhythms, some tied to specific dances. To think that the person responsible for this insulting post is connected to the Encinitas Council is disturbing. The photos that you see here come from images that were taken in 2020 during the protests. This was an Encinitas paddle out. And this, to me, is the true spirit of Encinitas. Some of you may remember that, but I know when I first saw these images, my heart was full. And I know that this is what Encinitas truly stands for: love and harmony. Like a pure glass of water, if you take one little drop of poison, that renders that glass of water poisonous. I'm over. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel LaShaw, and I've been an Encinitas resident for almost 20 years. I've been involved in the dance class that Diane talked about since its inception. We have always been about inclusion and building community. We encourage diversity, and that means diversity of opinion also. Mr. Haubeck, however, showed ignorance, one, ignorance with his original post, two, callousness when he was informed that his words were hurtful, and three, immaturity by dismissing everyone's comments. If a private citizen showed the same poor judgment and lack of empathy that Mr. Haubeck showed, I would just have a conversation with them and invite them to attend a class to see what we're all about. I would never stand in front of you and discuss free speech of a private citizen. But because he is not a private citizen, he represents our city, I am here before you to say that I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed as a local taxpayer, as a white person, as someone whose life is enhanced by this community. Okay, I run the Facebook and Instagram pages for this class as well as the email list. And that puts me in a unique position where I hear the comments and the questions from all the random people that want to attend class or that do attend class. The most memorable comments are from people saying that they live in de facto racial segregation, and our dance classes are the opportunity that they have to bridge that gap. Encinitas should feel proud to host such a gathering. If our town is not comfortable for all people, how would we attract world-class dance teachers? How would we support an artist in residence? How would we expect students to drive from Imperial Beach and Fallbrook? Many of us in this room have the privilege to ignore Mr. Haubeck's words if we so choose. Instead, please consider how his comment has affected our community. Ask yourself if you're okay with being linked to ignorance and intolerance that borders on open racism. Thank you for your time.
Amanisha Cunningham, followed by Beth Taylor, and then Julie Thunder. Beth Taylor, Julie Thunder, and then Sheila Cameron.
Hello, I'm here again as a parent and resident of Encinitas, and also have two students in the district who were very specifically represented in Mr. Haubeck's comments. So I'm speaking from that angle, and I really, this is not about litigating an event. It's about the impact of his words and what they signal to our community, most specifically to our young people and students. When someone appointed by this council uses racially charged and demeaning language to describe members of our community, that has consequences. Words from a private resident are one thing. Words from someone holding an official advisory role are another. Commissioners are extensions of this council. They carry the credibility of the city. Language that reduces people to stereotypes does real damage. It tells Black students and families that their culture can be mocked. It tells residents that some voices are treated as less worthy of dignity. It erodes trust in the very institutions that we are supposed to serve everyone. Commissions exist to represent the entire community. That includes people who may already feel marginalized. Appointment to commission is a privilege. It requires judgment, restraint, and an understanding that your words reflect on the city as a whole. This is absolutely not about political disagreement. It is about whether someone has demonstrated the temperament and respect for others that is necessary to serve in an official capacity. So the question is straightforward. Is the standard we want to set for who represents, is this the standard we want to set for representing Encinitas? I believe the answer is no. I urge you to remove Mr. Hubeck from his commission appointment and reaffirm that those who serve this city must represent all of us with respect, most importantly, our young residents. Thank you.
Hi, Julie Thunder, newly appointed commissioner of the Senior Commission, by the way. I'm looking forward to tonight's training, and I was shocked when I saw a local group has been asking people to come to this training without the council present to protest one of our new commissioners over a social media post. I've read the post, and I find the accusations to be unfounded and a gross exaggeration of what he clearly said and then later defended. The same group that did the all call for people to come here tonight did something similar to another person who applied for a commission on the night that we were all appointed, or some of us were appointed. They also protested me and tried to stop my appointment. Fair, that's fair. We're allowed to comment on who we want to be appointed and not. But today I learned that a newly appointed person just dropped out today. Did they resign because of this pressure, this harassment? Because that is exactly what this is. It's harassment. Was the post racist? I didn't think so. Some of you did. I think some of you and many of you won't. So I want to make sure my fellow commissioners are aware of the group who started this, because that group may soon come after all of you if you don't agree with the PAC, a political action committee. The group's name is Encinitas Action. And yes, they were initially a PAC, registered with the City of Encinitas and the State of California, which the PAC has raised nearly $10,000 this year alone to influence Encinitas politics. All PAC details are easily found on the city's website. The person who has been the most vocal about the the newly appointed commissioner's Facebook post is a member of Encinitas Action and is married to a man named Bob Ayers, who was the founding principal officer of the Political Action Committee that raised $10,000 to affect Encinitas politics. Mr. Ayers is the one that went after me at that council meeting, and now his wife is going after Mr. Hubeck. Recently, they claim to have changed the PAC to a community group, but it's the same players, the same logo, and the same social media accounts. It's clear that they are now trying to bring political maneuvering to our all-volunteer commissions. Sadly, Steve Hubeck is their next victim. Mr. Hubeck,
Sheila Cameron, former mayor of Encinitas, lived here 51 years. As a segue, I was a dancer, and I did a lot of African dance when I was at UCSB. I even taught it. So I support it 100%. I'm actually addressing you all as commissioners, past, present, future. I said this at a meeting the other night. I'm saying it again. I will give every single one of you a copy of this. I want you to put it in the front of a notebook and look at it every day and remind yourself what it is to be a commissioner for this city. Being on a commission is not a passive position. It requires an active participant who cares about their neighborhood, community, and city of Encinitas. I trust that is why you've all applied and are serving. You will be required to do homework, visit sites under discussion, meet and talk with concerned people on all sides of an issue. When you sit on the dais, listen to the concerns of the people on all sides. Have an in-depth discussion with your colleagues that shows you know the subject you are being asked to consider. You do your homework, you'll be a good participant. After careful consideration, pass on your recommendations or objections to the City Council. The Council wants your advice as the first line of defense and voice of the citizens of this city. Do not make a decision because you think that is what the City Council wants to hear. That makes me shudder. And that is not your job, nor is it what any council wants. One last thing, the staff, God bless them, work for you, not the other way around. It is a mutually respectful collaboration. They are being paid in their positions. You are not. You're a volunteer, a public servant. But it is your commission and it is your power to request items on the agenda and to represent and concerns and voices of your neighborhood. So as we embark on our 40th anniversary, as a city, know that a lot of people had a vision, worked very hard against some difficult odds, and were overjoyed to combine our independent communities into this radiant city. Please respect and continue that legacy. Don't screw up. Okay, also, take a Sunday between baseball and football season to drive around the city and get to know it. Take a community week, whatever it takes. And the Coast News in March is honoring Women's History Month, and you'll find an article written by yours truly about the founder of our city. Read it. You should know. Marjorie Foster Gaines, a great woman, and she came right out of here, did a fabulous job. I'm going to pass these around now. Ooh, I had time left, a whole second.
Final two speakers, Dave Dean, followed by Virba Bernard.
Good evening, City Manager, City Attorney, Mayor, Fire Chief, staff, and council. My name is Dave Dean, and for the first time, I've been, elected to be on Parks and Recreation. After a lifetime of wanting to be involved in the city, I have my first step into the arena. What I would like to ask each and every one of the commissioners, past, present, and future, is to speak your voice. If you have a thought on a subject, whatever commission you're on, share your voice, share your opinion, and let's all rise together to make Encinitas better than ever. Thank you for your time. Look forward to working with all of you. God bless Encinitas. God bless America.
Good evening, distinguished council members. My name is Yudiba Bernard Thomas. I'm a strong advocate for the arts, particularly the African arts. I direct an African heritage organization called Tesacho Sound African Drum and Dance Company. I've been a teaching artist on the roster for the California Arts Council at Escondido, and just an all-around advocate. I want to go a little different place where maybe you have gone or have not gone, because I take this as a teaching moment. I've been a teacher for a long time. Okay, so I want to ask you and let you and share with you the difference between overt and covert racism. This is something we got to take the bull by the horns. What's the difference and why we must teach our children this? My interpretation is drawn upon my life's experience growing up in Texas in the 1950s under full-blown apartheid and segregation as you may know it, and in California in the early 60s during so-called integration. By race, the overt racist is supremely comfortable and confident executing dysfunctional behavior toward others of different persuasions. To them, it is not a problem to sound or act out their true feelings of racial superiority. They're emboldened by what they perceive as critical mass support, comfort, and power within their own group, not understanding or knowing they're being driven by a measure or much more in their own insecurities. By race, the covert racist operates through a code of silence, secrecy, and deception, much like the stalking cougar or the dog that does not bark. They give the unaware and unsuspecting a false sense of security, leading the victim down a much more dangerous path. Well, with that said, we know that all of North County, Encinitas, San Diego, and the surrounding areas is not all and entirely racist. But just like the poison diamondback rattlesnake with its camouflage that resides here in Southern California, we may not immediately see or recognize it, even when it comes out in the warm rays of the sun. Thus, we are grateful when that rattle does sound off. Let's take what has happened here, why we are here. Let's take what has happened here as a rattler warning, a wake-up call. We must take countermeasures to safety and for well-being. We must teach our children to recognize that when the construct has an ism behind it, the construct of race has.
That does conclude public speakers tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. I am Jennifer Campbell, City Manager. Thank you so much for coming to our training for commissions and committees. Tonight I have with me Interim City Attorney Ajit Thind. We'll be conducting the training tonight. We're going to take it in two parts. I'm going to go over a little bit more of the municipal code, the work plans, and committee appointments. And the city attorney will take care of Brown Act, Roberts Rules. So we're super excited for you folks to be here. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you have to go to your commission and committee meetings as well, so appreciate you taking time out. Just a little background, I started with the city in 2016. As the Park Rec and Cultural Arts Director. So I had 4 commissions underneath me. So I'm very familiar with how the commissions are appointed and they work. And then I was also part of helping the Public Health and Safety Commission get started as well. So again, we're very excited to have you and hopefully you learned something today. We will have some time after each presentation for questions. We think it's great that you'll have that opportunity to ask that. Also here tonight, I thank the staff for being here. We've got the directors of the different departments that have commissions. We also have the staff liaisons and the commission secretaries. It was really important. I wanted to make sure that staff heard all of the training as well, so that we're all on the same page and we're all aligned as we go forward and do some really great things for the city. All right, so I'm going to first start out. So we have our municipal code, and that is basically kind of the rules and laws of the city. So within Chapter 2.30 are our boards, commissions, and committees. So first, it outlines appointment. And as you all know, you're appointed by our city council members. We do recruitment at least once a year. We've got staggered terms, so depending on the commission, it could be anywhere from 3 or 4 people up. And basically, you are appointed by at least 3. The mayor makes a recommendation, and then it's affirmed by 3 council members. It also talks about term limits. The Youth Commission does 1-year terms. The rest of the commissions basically do 3-year term limits. We do like to stagger them so that you're never having a completely new commission or committee. Commissioners can only sit on one commission at a time. We've had that before where sometimes commissioners leave. We had that this time. We had a commissioner come off Park and Rec to go into Planning Commission. Term limits are 2 terms. So basically, a commissioner or committee member can sit for a maximum of 6 years. After that, you can apply for a different commission. You just can't apply for the same commission that you were previously on. We also have some attendance. Members who are present more than 3 consecutive regular meetings would then be removed. So we do like to make sure that folks are attending their commission meetings. As far as compensation, the only commission that does receive compensation is Planning Commission. They receive $50 a meeting. Then we have rules and regulations. Basically, each board or commission and committee shall adopt a resolution for the hour, month, and location of the regular meetings. And then each commission or committee does prepare a work plan, and I'll talk a little bit about those in a couple later slides. As far as finances goes, the city, we budget for different commissions to do different things, and obviously we staff those. And then records. One of the things you'll notice when the interim city attorney talks about Brown Act, and these are all recorded, and they have meeting minutes. Also, for instance, with Planning Commission, they do pass resolutions and things like that, and we make sure as a city that we keep those records publicly available and that those are for future use. Just wanted to say that also each individual commission is listed under 2.30, and it talks about the makeup of the commission and then the duties. The one committee that is not listed in 2.30 is the Urban Forest Advisory Committee. That's actually listed in Chapter 15, and that's 15.02.050, and that outlines, again, what the Urban Forest Advisory Committee does and their duties. Okay, so next up, each commission and committee has specific duties depending on what their purpose is. You know, we've got Park and Rec Commission. That was one of the big ones that I had. That could be naming parks, talks about programming, talks about new facilities in parks, maintenance, and things like that. Obviously, Planning Commission, they're the ones that actually do some final decisions. Planning Commission makes final decisions on certain applications. They also make recommendations to City Council on general plan, zoning, and specific plan applications as well. Except for the Planning Commission, all other commissions and committees are recommending bodies only, which means as a commission or committee, you can come up with recommendations. Those recommendations then go to City Council and then would need to be approved by them. So except for the Planning Commission that makes decisions, basically you're recommending bodies. Now, however, Planning Commission decisions can be appealed to City Council. And it depends on which way. We had an appeal last night at City Council. So a lot of the Planning Commission decisions can be appealed, and City Council is the final one on that. So let's talk about work plans. So each year, the commissions and committees need to come up with a work plan. So this is basically your plan on what you want to accomplish. So it aligns with the duties of each commission and committee and what your purpose is. But as a group, you get to focus on some things that you think are important that you would like to see. And generally, you come up with what you want to accomplish, what might be the outcome, and then after that, with the work plan, you generally will report out outcomes, and then you'll come up with new plans each year. Those plans do need to go to City Council for approval. It just helps to have council take a look at those work plans and see what the commissions and committees are looking at. One of the other things, too, is that City Council can always add a work plan item to one of your work plans at any time. I remember when I had Youth Commission, it talked about some smoking and things like that, and we went ahead and the Youth Commission actually helped pass an ordinance here in the city of Encinitas. So again, they can always add a work plan outside of the time that you do that. You also get to report out on your outcomes. It's really nice. You get to report out on what you've accomplished, so that's really nice. One of the things that commissions and committees do, you'll notice a lot of commissions, some of you only meet 6 times a year. Some of you meet up to 12, and then there could be special meetings. We allow you to work outside of your commission. However, you cannot have more than a quorum. So, for instance, we'll go ahead and take the Senior Commission. The Senior Commission is made up of 7 members. It means that 3 members could work together. If you have 4 members working together, that's a quorum, and that is a Brown Act violation. So that's very important to know that. So a lot of times you can work and you can come up with ideas, you can work on specific projects. What you need to do within that work group is you then need to come to the commission, you give a full report out to your commission or committee, and then as a group you would vote to make a recommendation or how to move forward. So again, those kind of, we call them sometimes ad hocs or subcommittees, they always report out to the full commission, and then you're able to come up with recommendations and votes. Each commission also needs to select a chair and a vice chair. And we do that every year, and that way it kind of flip-flops. A lot of times the vice chair becomes a chair because they've got a little bit of experience, and then the chair runs the meeting. So within the commissions and committees you will have, and that's my next slide, you'll have a commission liaison and a committee liaison and a secretary. And basically the secretary is the one that keeps the minutes, does roll call, calls up items, and then you'll have staff liaisons who are kind of our experts. I'm going to take Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission. We have our Director of Engineering that sits, as well as our traffic engineer, Abe Bandigan. So we generally have experts that go ahead and help to work with those commissions. However, the chair actually runs the meeting. The chair, just kind of like the mayor, that person actually runs the meeting. They keep things moving along. They will call point of order if necessary. So if you are thinking about being a chair, you've got a lot of work. It's pretty fun, but you got to make sure that you keep everyone moving in the same direction. A couple of additional information is members must fill out what's called a Form 700. Now, Youth Commission does not have to do this, and Senior does not have to do this. But this is basically a financial disclosure for any type of potential conflict of interest. So depending on what financial interest you have, now you're not really necessarily a decision-making body, but you could be involved in something that you might have a financial interest in. So we do we require that all of you fill out a Form 700, and that's due by April 1st of every year. The city clerk helps administer to let folks know. But again, our youth commissioners, senior commissioners do not have to worry about that. Commissions and committees, you'll receive a handbook, and that will be kind of a guide, and that will help you. That's another training tool that we use. It's a little bit big, so Ajit and I are trying to go ahead and make this a little bit smaller as well, but you will receive that. And then kind of lastly, City Council, they really set the goals and priorities for the city. Each year we do a goal-setting session. It's usually in February ahead of budget, and what we've done the last 2 years is the council has come up with focus areas, they've come up with goals, and then as staff we've come up with objectives into an annual work plan. So it's just good also to familiarize yourself with that, because it's really, those meetings are open to the public. We usually have a lot of good participation. We have public speakers that come to talk about what they feel is important as well in the city. So it's great to familiarize yourself. That's under the annual work plan on our website. So it's just nice because it helps so that our commissioners and committee members basically know where staff or city council's kind of headed with priorities and goals. And if you have any questions, or we can have Ajit do a presentation and we can take them all at once. And if you have a question, if you want, would you please come up, and that way everyone can hear the question?
About the term limits. You said after the term limits have been exceeded, the person can't go back on the same commission. Is there a waiting period after which the person can return to that commission?
One cycle, so one term. So if you wanted to go back, you would wait the 3 years and then reapply.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
Did you want to cover partial terms followed by 2 terms?
Okay, as the mayor talked, so sometimes we do have openings where we've had, unfortunately, sometimes people have to resign, sometimes people move, they have work obligations. So too, a partial term would not be considered a full term. So sometimes we have that. So depending on how you do that, you could do a partial term, a full term, and a full term, then you would. So some people might get a little more than 6 years, depending on if you get a partial term.
Good evening, Manager. Quick question on terms. Excuse me, I'm a little new to this, but you said 3 years. Is Parks and Recreation a 3-year term? Someone had told me it was 4, and either way, I'm happy. I just would like to know the answer.
Nope, that's okay. It is 3 years. Like I said, Youth Commission's 1. We do that. Now, the interesting part, too, about Youth Commission is they don't have term limits. So, we got a little bit. They also don't have to fill out 700 forms. So yes, it's 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you very much. We'll still be here. You can ask questions at any time on any subject, but I'm going to turn it over to Interim City Attorney Ajit Thind.
Thank you, City Manager. Pull up the slides here. Well, hello to all of you. My name is Ajit Thind. I'm the Interim City Attorney. I was appointed a couple months ago by the Council. Here to talk with you about the Brown Act, Public Records Act, and Robert's Rules. By way of background, I'm Senior Counsel at the law firm of Colantino, Highsmith, and Watley. So in addition to my duties here for the City of Encinitas, I also serve as the City Attorney for the City of La Palma in Northern Orange County. I've been practicing law and focusing on municipal law since January of 2010 was when I started working. Thank you again for all of you for being here. It's really important that we all get on the same page in terms of what your duties and obligations are. So the objectives of this presentation are to familiarize yourself with the laws that govern your service, so you know when you should be asking questions, and to encourage each of you to think beyond legal restrictions and to provide you tools for doing so. So there's a lot of information that's covered. We're not expecting you to be experts on any of it, but really what I'm hoping is by the end of it, you can start to develop a spidey sense so that you know when there's an issue and then you know how to potentially deal with it or when you need to talk with your staff liaison about it as well. In terms of the presentation, we'll go over 3 main areas of law: the Brown Act, the Public Records Act, and Robert's Rules. We'll spend the majority of the time on the Brown Act because it's, in my mind, the most important of the 3. And it also applies to you when you leave this room. You still are subject to the Brown Act because you're all members of a commission or a committee. So the general principles of the Brown Act, there's 3 of them. All meetings must be open and public. A meeting is any time that a majority of a council, commission, or a committee comes together and discusses city business. If that happens, it needs to follow the Brown Act. Any actions and deliberations of that body are to be taken in public. The best practice is if you find yourself with multiple members of the same board or commission that you're on, don't talk about business that's within the subject matter of that commission unless you're here at a notice meeting. Second, only matters on the public agenda can be discussed. So agendas need to be published generally 72 hours in advance for regular meetings and 24 hours in advance of a special meeting. They have to contain a brief general description of the item that will be discussed, and that's what you should stick to when you're at the meeting. Third, everyone has the right to attend and participate in meetings. There's no registration requirement. Anybody can provide comment at a meeting regarding the agenda items or at regular meetings, anything that's within the subject matter jurisdiction of that body. So these requirements help ensure that the government decisions are made in a transparent form that allows for public input. And the purpose here is in part to avoid the appearance of wrongdoing. So the purpose includes helping to avoid the possibility of improperly discussing local agency business without the public present, as well as helping protect due process rights of parties that are appearing before a body. If the public perceives that you've engaged in any wrongdoing or misconduct, it can call into question your ability to carry out your responsibilities with fairness, impartiality, objectivity, and integrity. It could lead to public embarrassment, and it can lead to liability for the city as well. So who is subject to the Brown Act? The Brown Act covers members of legislative bodies. Legislative bodies are things like City Council, Board of Supervisors, the Board of a Water District, as well as commissions that are created by those bodies. It also covers subcommittees that are created by formal action, a body or entity that's created by the City Council and lawfully delegated authority of the Council, or a body or entity that receives funds from the city and their governing body includes a council member or the mayor. And as the city manager mentioned earlier, it doesn't cover temporary ad hoc committees that are made up of solely of members of that body that constitute less than a quorum. So if you have a 5-member body and they decide to create an ad hoc temporary subcommittee of 2, that body is not subject to the Brown Act, provided that it just acts in an advisory capacity, takes a task, can deal with that task outside of a meeting, comes back, and then provides a report and advises the rest of the body. That type of action, that type of subcommittee is not subject to the Brown Act. What is a meeting under the Brown Act? Well, it's a quorum of the body, and it's present discussing business of that body. So it's a majority of members coming together to hear, discuss, or deliberate on any item that is within the scope of the duties assigned to that body. So I'll just pause for a second and note, it's not just deliberation, it's not just discussion, it's also hearing. And this is intended to be a broad definition. A quorum, as we've heard before, is measured as more than half of the body. So if the body has 5, it's 3. If the body has 7, it's 4. And it's a quorum that's needed to hold a meeting. So it's important that each of you know what the number of participants on each of your commissions that you're on. And so you can always be cognizant of whether or not you are now creating a meeting if you're all meeting in a certain area to talk about business within the subject matter of that commission. And various types of communication are prohibited. Non-notice meetings, as well as serial meetings. It's possible for members to violate the Brown Act accidentally. You could bump into each other at the supermarket, at City Hall, at a soccer game, and you could talk about business that's within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission you're on. That's probably something you do by accident. It's possible that it happens. It's also possible for you to do it intentionally. You could decide to meet specifically for that purpose outside of a notice meeting to talk about commission business. It's okay for you to talk with a single member outside of a meeting about even matters that are within the subject matter jurisdiction. I wouldn't recommend it because, as we'll talk about in a second, sometimes that commission member may then talk to another and another, and then all of a sudden you've created a Brown Act meeting. So the better rule is don't discuss city business with another commission member outside of a notice meeting. In terms of types of communication prohibited, it's possible for members to violate the Brown Act by having serial communications outside of a public meeting. And a serial communication happens when there's a communication that involves less than a majority of members, but the total number of communications involves a majority of the body outside of a public meeting. So it could be a situation, again, where one member talks to another, and then they talk to another, and then they talk to another, such that 4 out of 7 have talked about an item that's within the subject matter jurisdiction of the body. Serial communications can create a meeting, and they are specifically prohibited by the Brown Act. We'll go to the next slide. So this is an example of the way you could have serial communications. This is known as the hub and spoke example. So in a hub and spoke, one member, Red, contacts all or a majority of the other members to create a collective concurrence among those members outside of a notice meeting. In this example, Red contacts all the other members to inquire if they intend to vote yes to support an item. Under the Brown Act, since a majority of this body is 3 members, the original member, including the chair, can only communicate to one other member about body business without it violating the Brown Act. But in this case, they've discussed with more than just the one. Another example of a serial meeting is one that is done through a daisy chain or a game of telephone. In this situation, one member contacts another member, then that member contacts another, and then another, and so on, until a majority of the body has been contacted and has developed a consensus. So in this situation, blue says to green, you have my support on item such and such. Green then talks to yellow. Blue and I both support this. And then yellow talks to pink about a few different things, but then also mentions, oh yeah, by the way, blue, green, and I all support that item. At that point, you can have a serial meeting that has occurred. So be mindful of your conversations, even with a single member of the commission. In the next example, here we have, go to the next slide. Here we have another daisy chain, but in this situation, we don't get a consensus forming. Blue talks to green about the weather. Green talks to yellow about something that they need from Sacramento. Yellow then talks to pink about a bunch of issues, and then talks about one issue that is before the commission that they're a part of. But in this case, there wasn't the series of communications. So in some situations, you will not have a serial meeting that's formed. But then again, you don't necessarily know what your fellow commissioners are going to talk about with other commissioners outside of your presence. Here we have an example of prohibited communications that are facilitated by a representative. So a member's representative, agent, or intermediary can directly or indirectly communicate with a majority of other members. Here, Member Green's partner, Apollo, is very involved in the community and serves on the board of several nonprofits. Other members that sit on a body with Member Green also serve on boards with Apollo. Member Green asks Apollo to check where other members stand on an item. Apollo talks to so many of the members that he ends up communicating with more than a majority of the body. Apollo has acted in that case as a member as Member Green's agent and created a serial meeting of the body, which is prohibited by the Brown Act. If Apollo just did this on his own and was not in communication with his partner Green, then there probably would be no violation. But in these situations, it becomes a he said, she said, and we want to avoid those if possible. What kind of communications are allowed? So there are a number of exceptions to the definition of a meeting. So as a member, you may speak with people outside of a notice meeting, with individuals about an issue within the scope of duties that are assigned to your body. This exception under the Brown Act recognizes the right to discuss matters with constituents, advocates, consultants, reporters, city staff even, and colleagues. But as we talked about earlier in the presentation, if you speak to other members of the body about something within the scope of your duties, you may end up speaking to a majority at some point, and then that creates a Brown Act violation. So there are some specific exceptions that are listed in the Brown Act. So a majority of the members, however, are still allowed to attend things like conferences that are open to the public, a public meeting of another body. They're also allowed to attend things like social or ceremonial events like ribbon cuttings or grand openings as well. But of course, they can't then use that as an avenue to go and have a side conversation about an item that's within the subject matter jurisdiction of the body that they're on. So you are allowed to be using social media. You can engage in conversations or communications regarding commission business with non-members to answer questions that they may have, provide information to the public, solicit information from members of the public as well. You can post on social media about commission legislative or policy issues without engaging in a serial meeting. I'd caution you to avoid, and this is in particular for the Planning Commission, I'd caution you to avoid discussing public hearing items, prior to a vote on them, because the applicant generally does have due process rights and wants to know that you're fair, unbiased, and that you're listening to the information that's presented to you as part of a public hearing item. There is a specific exception, though, that was adopted in 2020 through AB 992. You are not allowed to respond directly to any post made on social media that is, made, posted, or shared by another commission member regarding any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the body that you both sit on. So this is just a one-to-one. So if somebody on Facebook posts about an item that they're excited about at one of your meetings, and a fellow commission member decides to just like it or dislike it or retweet it or comment it on it or all the other things that you can do through social media, that is technically a violation of the Brown Act, even though it's not a majority of you. So this is a unique rule that we have to deal with. It's still one that a lot of people are learning, and luckily is not one that has led to a lot of litigation or criminal prosecution, but it's something that you want to be cognizant of, is if you see a fellow commission member posting about something within the subject matter jurisdiction on Facebook or wherever, avoid commenting on it, avoid liking it, sharing it. The Brown Act also has agenda posting requirements, as we've talked about. Regular meeting agendas must be posted 72 hours prior to the meeting. Special meetings require that agendas are posted 24 hours before the meeting. There are issues where you can amend and add items to the agenda after it's been posted within the 24-hour or within the 72-hour period. It's rare that as a commission you will ever meet the urgency required to add items to the agenda that way. That is something, though, that the Planning Commission may do in certain circumstances, or the City Council has the ability to do. Agendas must contain a brief general description of each item. They have to include the date, time, and location of the meeting. And they are to inform the public of the scope of the body's intended plans, so that the members of the public can decide whether or not they want to participate at the meeting. And they have to be posted in a location freely accessible to the public here at City Hall and on our website as well. In terms of the rights of the public at our meetings, there are multiple rights. The public has the right to comment on any matter on the agenda, and at regular meetings, any matter that's within the subject matter jurisdiction, even if it's not on the agenda. They have the right to record the meeting with an audio or videotape recorder, or take photographs, as long as they are not doing so in a way that disrupts the meeting. They can review agendas or other writings that have been distributed to the body. Like I said before, they can attend without registering or identifying themselves to the commission. And they're also, of course, allowed to witness votes taken by the commission. Votes are to be cast in public, except for votes allowed in closed session. I'm not including a discussion on closed session because I don't anticipate that commissions will be meeting in closed session for any reason. The legislative bodies do have the right to regulate public input. You're allowed to adopt reasonable regulations governing the rights of public input. This is done by the City Council. The City Council does have policies in place that both relate to City Council meetings and then also apply to the meetings of the commissions. Regulations can include limitations on the total amount of time that are allocated to agenda issues and limits on the amount of time for each individual speaker. You can restrict the scope of comments to matters that are within the council's or the commission's subject matter jurisdiction. SB 1100 allows for the chair to remove or cause the removal of an individual for disrupting a meeting. We, of course, have to be very careful in doing that. I hope that this is something that the chairs of the commissions never have to get involved with, because obviously our citizens who attend have enormous First Amendment rights as well that we have to balance with our meetings. In terms of the way we look at disruptions and the ability to eject participants, a council or commission can remove an individual from a meeting if the individual disrupts the meeting by either failing to comply with reasonable and lawful regulations that have been adopted. In such a case, it does require a warning beforehand, or you're allowed to remove an individual if they have engaged in behavior that constitutes the use of force or a true threat of force, and that does not require a warning. Again, I hope you never have to deal with that. If you do, talk to the liaison. If you have a member of the sheriff's department there too, they're there to assist in those circumstances. So violations of the Brown Act, they can result in civil lawsuits or even criminal action by the district attorney. However, they may first and foremost result in media attention and intense embarrassment. Any interested party can bring a civil lawsuit to invalidate actions of a body that allegedly were taken in violation of the Brown Act. Generally, before civil litigation is commenced against the body or the city, the individual has to send what's known as a cure or correct letter, and then the body receives it and is able to decide whether or not maybe there was a violation or not, or whether or not it wants to adopt what's known as an unconditional commitment that it will not engage in similar actions going forward. They have 30 days to make that determination. I'd also note that if litigation does happen, costs and attorney's fees may be awarded to a successful party. In terms of criminal matters, they are very rare, but violations of the Brown Act are punishable as a misdemeanor if there was an intention to deprive the public of information. Okay, now we're on to the Public Records Act. So the Public Records Act was adopted in 1968. It ensures that records related to public agency business are available for public inspection. What is a public record? Public record is any writing with information about city business. It includes digital and paper records, handwritten, typed, text, emails, photo, video, or electronic documents. It can also include, as I've mentioned in bold, communications that are sent over private devices that pertain to city business. This was decided about 9 years ago by the California Supreme Court in relation to a lawsuit that sought text messages involving city council members. So be aware that even text messages, emails that you make from your private devices, if they pertain to the business of the commission that you're on, those can be considered public records. And the way it generally works is somebody can submit a Public Records Act request to the city clerk's office. They receive it. The city has 10 days to take a look at it, figure out whether or not there are public records within the city's possession or the possession of a city official or employee. After the 10 days are over, the city needs to have made a determination as to whether it has those records, whether exemptions apply to them such that they don't need to be disclosed. In certain circumstances, the city can also obtain additional 14 days to make that determination. It doesn't mean that people get the records after 10 days. In some situations, just due to the sheer amount of PRA requests that the city receives, it can take weeks, months, potentially years to get through a full response to a PRA request. So as I mentioned before, emails, social media posts, text messages about city business, whether it's on a city device or your personal accounts, those can be considered public records, and you're responsible for providing those records if they are being requested by a member of the public. We'll talk briefly as well about Robert's rules. So these are the rules that the City Council has adopted for use by both itself as well as commissions and committees. These are rules that were designed for the British Parliament. They are used across the world. They can be at times unwieldy for smaller bodies, but they're sort of the best that we have, and that's what we use. These rules are a means to an end. They're all about well-considered democratic decision-making. The rules aren't intended to be used to grind discussion to a halt, but in certain circumstances, the chair can help to vote to suspend rules, and the tools are ultimately supposed to be used to end any parliamentary paralysis. In terms of the general framework for how you all should be considering items, it's laid out here. The chair will call an item. Staff or a commission member will then present on the item. The commission members then ask questions of either the commission member that presented or the staff member that presented. The chair will then open it up to the public for any questions or comments that it may have. And then after that has concluded, the chair then brings it back to the commission for discussion and then debate. The commission acts by voting on a motion. I move to, or something along those lines. Then you will need a second on the motion. Once you have the motion on the table, debate begins. And at that point, you'll discuss it. A motion can be amended. Friendly amendments are often accepted by the maker and the second of the motion. Unfriendly amendments will require a substitute motion. Unless some other rule or law requires a higher threshold, generally all you need is a simple majority of the quorum to adopt the motion. There are some specific rules that can apply to council and in some situations planning commission, but for all of you in the commissions, the rule, unless I'm missing something, the rule is a simple majority is all you're going to need for a motion. In terms of amending motions, amendments are allowed on main motions and some procedural motions. Again, requires a second and the majority vote to make the amendment. You can also amend an amendment to a main motion, but you cannot amend it further. You vote on the amendment first, and then if it fails, then you go back to the initial motion. There are some common motions that are made. A motion to adjourn, it's a motion that's not debatable or amendable, just requires a majority vote, and it happens immediately at any time during the meeting. That's something we don't typically do. We usually adjourn at the end, but there is the right to adjourn before you conclude all the items. You can also have a motion to reconsider. It requires a majority of vote as well, and it has to be raised during the same meeting as the original motion that's at issue. Bottom line is that Robert's rules are here to provide and assist you with obtaining a general dialogue among respectful peers. It helps you to keep it real and try to avoid getting too bogged down in the details when possible. And if you have questions about the Robert's rules while you're going through a meeting, feel free to ask your staff liaison that's there. They know them fairly well as well. And with that, I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Hi, I have a Brown Act question. So as you know, each of our commissions works with a staff liaison. In the event that individual commissioners approach the staff liaison with the same issue that is under our jurisdiction, how do we reconcile? What's the appropriate action?
So that happens all the time with council and commissions where there will be one-on-ones between commission members and staff members where they will talk about issues, ask questions. It's possible that multiple members of the body will raise the same issues. That's absolutely possible, and it happens all the time. But the staff member is not there to tell you about their discussions with the other committee members or council members. And so staff members should avoid doing that. Sometimes it does happen just in casual conversation that they may mention it. But again, they should try to avoid doing that if possible so that we aren't all creating a serial meeting through staff as well. But thank you for mentioning that, because that is something that does come up frequently. But the one-on-ones ultimately are a valuable way for you to get information from staff, but staff will not then be using that to essentially create a meeting by creating consensus, letting you know what other members are thinking or feeling about an item.
Steve Chesnowskis, Public Health and Safety Chair. My question to you is, there's a lot of apps out there nowadays that will summarize meetings. Are we allowed on the dais to have an app open to record what the meeting is, so at the end of that meeting, it can be summarized in a specific amount of notes just for myself? And the second question to that also is that something that the public has access to if I'm doing it during this meeting?
So on the first, I could answer that clearly. You do have the right to do that, because just as any other member of the public, whether you're on the commission or somebody sitting here, you have the right to record it. So that is something you're allowed to do. It could be considered a public record. I got to be honest, I haven't gone into that level of detail looking at that, but it potentially would be considered a public record, though, as an item that is within your possession as a commission member that relates to the business of the body that you're on. So to me, that checks the box. That checks the boxes for being a public record.
Okay, and do we have to notify the people on the dais that we are recording this personally?
You don't have to notify them, but I think as a matter of course, it's something that I would do out of respect to your fellow commission members.
Yeah, on some of these Zoom calls you could have nowadays, you could do a Zoom call and you could hang up that call, and I've had people within 3 to 5 minutes send me a full summary from AI of what we talked about. So those are my concerns.
I understand. Thank you.
Me again, couple of questions. Does everybody have handouts on the Robert's Rules of Order? Because you didn't put them as important, but I think if you don't follow Robert's Rules of Order, you don't have a good meeting. So I assume they're all getting copies of that or not?
We don't have handouts at this time. Ultimately, that may be something that we do.
Okay, I suggest everybody look it up on the internet. The other thing I want to comment on what the gentleman was just up here. How come they're allowed to have cell phones and that kind of things during a meeting? I mean, before cell phones, et cetera, we had a guy sitting on the council who was listening to the baseball game through his things, a city council person. Yeah, true. So I'm wondering, it doesn't seem right that they have these things going on up on the dais. And my last question is, I'd like to be a little clearer on the Public Records Act. If I make a request, something, maybe code enforcement, I file something in code enforcement and somebody else asks to get a copy of everything I do, does my name get released? Because over the years, this has changed. Can you release the person who has filed a report? Because lots of times that leads to other problems. So I'm really concerned about that. So I'd appreciate if you'd address that.
Yeah, on the first item related to use of personal devices while you're on the dais, I may need to familiarize myself with any council policies related to that, because I know the council members don't do that. And so it's probably going to be the expectation, again, that commission members don't do that as well.
Right. I mean, it just seems not a good idea.
Yeah.
And you can be communicating with somebody from the other side or whatever. That just makes me uncomfortable. And I know this is really not my generation, but I've had to get used to it. We've had these things in our hands, in our pockets all the time, and it's, there's no privacy. So
I understand.
I think, Sheila, I can address your question at least partially on the use of cell phones on the dais. I think it's in the bylaws for the city council. I don't know about the other bylaws. And
No, it's not.
The reason for not allowing it, I assume you talked ex parte communication? Sure. Yeah, so it's to avoid having inadvertent ex parte communication during a meeting. So there is a prohibition, and I think it's bylaws, that you cannot take electronic communication other than an emergency family is the limit. And that's one of the reasons that we're doing this training here, but also we're going to be looking at harmonizing the bylaws amongst all of the different commissions, harmonizing in spirit, I guess, so that these kind of policies are in all of them, and that we make sure we're all playing by essentially the same rules. So look over the next, I don't know whether it'll be 6 months or a year, as we roll this stuff out to the different commissions and get commonality. So if you get trained in one commission, it's pretty much the same working. Now, obviously, each commission has different subject matter and might have different nuances, especially the Planning Commission. So hopefully that answers the question.
Those can be released by the city. They can be.
A quick follow-up to Sheila's comment about Robert's Rules of Order. You probably know there are lots of different versions of Robert's Rules of Order, and they go to great lengths and in great detail. If we're being asked to follow that, I think it would be helpful to have at least the summary version of what we're expected to follow. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
This I do remember. We use Robert's Rules as a guideline. We're not formal Robert's Rules. If you go look at the bylaws, it'll say we use it as a guideline. So it's the spirit of it right now. So any simple summary of Robert's Rules should work.
Hi there, Brad Lefkowitz, Chair of UFAC. Two separate questions. In the event someone is absent or a commission is not fully staffed, can you talk about what happens in a 2-2 vote or 3-3 vote?
Yeah, 2-2 votes, 3-3 votes, tie votes are a failure of the motion to pass. There's also a rule related to somebody abstaining as well that we have. I saw it in the city council policies that a vote for an abstention is a vote with the majority on the motion. Abstention votes are all over the place, city by city, but that's the way we do it here.
Great, thank you. That's very helpful. Second question, the rules for social media use, do those apply to city council as well?
Yes.
Have they received this training? I might suggest that you give it to them again. Thank you.
I was just wondering if I can just say, can I say a comment to the whole body here of all commissions? Yeah. No, I'm done. I'm sorry about that. I was just thinking, my name is Jennifer Morakovitz. I serve on the Arts Commission. It's vice chair. So there's I think there's a learning curve. When you're on the commission, I found personally, I thought like, okay, well, who am I? What's my role really? I'm not employed here. I'm not elected. And what does it mean to be appointed? So that took some time for me to like kind of figure that out. And then I realized, what kind of that role, what it means to me, being like an ambassador or something to the arts or something like that. I just want to say a little something about the social media, because that was something that that's being brought up. I just think, you know what, we just have to all be very careful. If I'll go ahead and say that. the best thing to do is just like zip up sometimes. And it's really hard, but I just think that I felt the best personally when I've like walked away from something like that. And if my Facebook profile, actually, I really went through it and I cleaned it up. I am so private. It's like almost like a ghost. But that's just my personal preferences for me, and it's worked for me. But everybody will come to find out what works best for them. But I just wanted to say that. I just felt like I should share that. Thanks.
Do we have any other questions? All right, so just a couple other items. As the mayor spoke about, we will be working with staff and the liaisons to really go ahead and hone in on how the agendas look, the staff reports, bylaws, work plans. We're trying to make things very uniform so that no matter what commission you're on, if you do hop between commissions, there's a uniform look. It also helps because sometimes we have staff liaisons and the staff secretaries that do switch up, so that helps them as well. Just a couple points too. When in doubt, ask. If there's anything that you're curious about, you have a question, or, you know, as Ajit talked about, your spidey sense, sometimes with me, I'm like, something doesn't feel right, or I really should ask. Please do that. It's best to keep yourself out of trouble. It's best to know the right information. Your commission and committee secretaries and staff liaisons are there. I offer this up. I'm here all the time. You are always welcome to contact myself. I can always get some information from the city attorney if necessary. We're here as a resource, so please see that as such. It's just easier to ask first, and we're here to help. And thank you again for being here tonight. We know that you're involved in these commissions and committees because you have a passion for something, you love the city, and we really thank you for giving your time. As we talked about, planning commission and even $50 a meeting, you're not getting paid to be here, so you're really giving of yourself. And one of the best ways that you can give back to your community is by doing that. So, I mean, it's just an honor that all of you wanted to be a part of Encinitas. We're so excited to have you, and just thank you again for coming tonight for this training. And just remember, as staff, we're here to help, assist, and be a resource. So thank you so much.